Hello, folks. My name is Jack Paul Singh, and this is InnerShift, my podcast for the mid-career professionals who seems right on with everything from the outside, but from the inside, they feel lack of fulfillment. In this podcast, I bring in the leaders and the folks who have already walked to this path and have created some tools and techniques that we all can use. So without any delay, I introduce Eric. Eric is he is technologist. He is very accomplished in his field. We'll ask more about that. But primarily, he is a life coach, a certified hypnotherapist, and a certified neuro-linguistic programming life coach. So without any more delay, let me ask first, Eric. Eric, tell us more about being a certified hypnotherapist and certified neuro-linguistic programming life coach means how do they help to the folks who come to you?
Well, thanks, Jack Paul. Thank you for having me on your podcast and letting me talk about this. This is a passion in my life. Uh, so this is really great to be able to have this opportunity to talk with you today. So your question about sounds like you're asking me about the intersection of NLP and hypnotherapy.
Exactly. Yes, Eric.
Right. So it's a great question. And what it is if you get down to the root of where most of our problems come from in life, they're all driven by our subconscious.
Yes.
So when we're working a coaching client, right? We're doing life coaching type of work with them, we're focused more on the conscious layer, right? That's only 10% of our minds. What the hypnotherapy allows me to do is to be able to relax the client and be able to get in at a deeper layer, right? And what that allows us to do is by relaxing the client down, we help them turn off the critical factors of their mind, right? So you say to some people, hey, what are your limited beliefs?
Yeah.
They may look at you sideways like, what do you mean limited beliefs? I don't have any limited beliefs. Well,
Yeah.
believe it or not, we all have limited beliefs.
Absolutely.
And what I find with the hypnotherapy is once they're able to let go of those critical factors of their mind, we can get into the root of where not only what their limited beliefs are, but we can also get to the source of where those limited beliefs formed. There's techniques within hypnotherapy like regression, where we could take a client back all the way back to maybe where they were 6 or 7. Right? Let's take the example of a person who believes that I can't trust people. Where the heck did that come from? Right?
Yeah.
And so you regress the person back, and it turns out that they in kindergarten told a friend, hey, I'll meet you over there by the water fountain. And we went over to the water fountain, and that person never showed up. And it wasn't that person's fault. The teacher didn't let them go over to the water fountain.
Yeah.
But we formed a limited belief that, wow, to protect myself,
Yeah.
I need to just tell people that can't be trusted.
Yeah.
And that forms at a very early age. See, when we're growing up, from about age 0 to 7, we're sponges.
Yep. Yeah. I agree.
In that time frame, we are in what's known as a theta brainwave state. And so when the theta brainwave state, you're open to all possibilities. You're able to absorb information. And that's really what hypnotherapy is to be able to relax a person so that they're able to get into that theta brainwave state. any point in our day-to-day lives, we're in what's known as a beta brainwave state. In a
Yeah.
beta brainwave state, we've got access to, we'll call them the intellectual abilities, right? We're highly analytical, but the brainwaves themselves are very fast. And they don't allow you sometimes to be able to open up and be able to see the whole picture, right? So then as you relax a person down there, they start to begin to go into what's known as an alpha brainwave state. This is where some hypnotherapists like to spend their work in. And it's a very good place to be, but there's layers below it. One is the one below alpha is known as theta. That's where I've been taught to teach. And
Yeah.
there's even layers below that where, let's say you were to get a medical procedure and you didn't want to use anesthesia,
Yeah.
it's possible to relax somebody so low that they don't need anesthesia and won't feel pain.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. These techniques are. So, Eric, I know that you also help mid-career professionals. But before we go there, let me ask you, give us some background. What you do in IT. I know that you are in the forefront of cutting edge IT. So give us like a in a very high level what you do. So we all know that.
What I do.
In your job 9 to 5, we all do for paycheck unless we really move to the other side. So sometimes we go through that transition, and I know that you have a very accomplished IT career and you have decided to take a plunge in your passion, and that is something what I think will help a lot of people, that hey, um it is the balance, it is how you pursue your life. So sometimes it is more important to see everything holistic rather than just being stuck to this is what I do, this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. But they rather have to spread their wings and see where the wind takes them. So give us some background. How did you reach here? What have you been um, doing as a part of your Navy, or after that you joined? So some idea of who Eric is.
No, thank you. Thank you for clarifying the question. Because when it started out, I was thinking of Office Space right off the bat, where the two Bobs are
Yeah.
asking, "Well, what do you say you do here?" And
Yeah, yeah, it
his
was going there.
Peter Gibbons' response was, "Well, normally I come in and I pretend like I'm working." Was essentially what his answer was. That's right where my brain went.
Yep, yep.
So what I do 9 to 5, we'll call it, is I work at one of the big five insurance companies here in Hartford as an IT architect. And as an IT architect, I spend my time trying to help application teams with designing how to use generative AI and cloud technologies to be able to host their solutions. This been doing this now for working at this company for over 18 years. Um, you're right. I did. Thank you very much for doing your homework. I was in the Navy from 93 to 98. I was a hospital corpsman working with not only in an emergency department, but also I was attached to a Marine battalion running around with infantry battalion Marines, cleaning up their boo-boos and helping them with colds and sickness. So I have healing in my background.
Yeah.
And, as in the last couple of years, I'll just kind of tell you that how I started to move towards hypnotherapy and mindset coaching was time when right before I had gotten married, I was developing back pain. And I know it wasn't from anything physical. And at the time, I had heard Howard Stern, I was listening to him quite a bit, and he was talking about back pain that he had when he was younger. and he read a book from a doctor named John Sarno. And John Sarno started talking about the mind and how we as humans repress trauma. And I'm not talking like trauma, something horrible happened to me. We're talking about even just the trauma that happens on a day-to-day basis that we don't want to deal with. And we push that down and we push that down and we push that down. And eventually your body can tell you that I've had enough. This stuff has to work its way upward.
Yeah.
So I learned from Dr. Sarno how to handle that trauma. I also have learned how to use back pain as well as any other pains as a barometer of I have too much stress in my life and I need to start taking some precautions now before it begins to develop back into a back pain again, which was great. That gave me the foundation I needed to believe on just how powerful the mind is.
Yeah.
I learned the different levels of the mind between the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and Dr. Sarno talks about from a Freudian point of view with the id and the ego and the superego. I just focus on keeping it a lot simpler. It's either conscious thought or it's a subconscious thought. You're either aware of it or you don't. And that the subconscious is essentially where all the programming is in our lives that determines everything about us. Every belief that we have is stored in the subconscious. Every action we take, whether we realize it or not, is driven from our subconscious.
Yes. Yeah. So,
So
I mean, I know that psychosomatic is like a big field, and definitely, from the point of view of therapists and all, like they like go deep into that. We as a life coaches definitely are, forward looking. We just take the person and make sure that they actually become the best version of themselves, so they can not only yeah. So I have definitely had my fair share with psychosomatic, and I know that these cannot be diagnosed, and after a point you find out the brain is actually doing it, so you have a very different treatment, exactly like what you're mentioning, Eric. But let me ask you this, Eric. So help me understand, like, what kind of problems, especially, the mid-career ones that you specialize in, what kind of problems they have? Like, what we know that there is a gap in fulfillment and success. And we have seen that so many, like I've seen some surveys in corporate America, a lot of employees struggle with their fulfillment from the job. And then, people like us, we definitely, are looking to help them. But what have you seen in your experience? What kind of challenges can these mid-career professionals or IT professionals or, those guys can have? Where are we lacking this fulfillment? What is going on?
yeah, you brought up a couple of things right off the bat, right? You
Yeah.
you brought up fulfillment, right? The other one that I see quite a bit is around an achievement identity.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And by that, what I'm talking about is you complete one task and you're already moving on to the next task. There's no time for wins,
yeah,
right? You don't take the time to be able to just say, wow, what is it I just accomplished? You're just, in
yeah,
order to feel like I'm contributing, I always need to be achieving.
yeah. You work like machine.
Exactly, right? But we're not cogs in a wheel,
Yeah,
right? We need time and space, maybe just to celebrate a win.
yeah.
And so that's something I see quite often. And some of the others are around maybe an imposter syndrome.
Okay.
I could tell you myself, I know that I have when I first got into IT architecture, I was pulled out of an environment management role. I was in charge of a performance environment and making sure that environment always stayed in line with what we wanted to test with, made all those requirements. But when I got pulled into this architecture role, I was sitting there in a conference room, and it was my first staff meeting as an architect. And I was so excited to be there until I sat there. And the only thing I could do during this entire meeting was compare myself to everybody else in the room.
Yeah.
And now looking back on it 15 years later, going, that was just ridiculous, right? I was a brand new architect, and I'm
Yeah.
comparing to my people that have been doing this their entire careers. But that's how we work, right?
Yeah.
We
And
walk
this
into a
is,
room and we size up the other people, and
yeah. And this is because we just throw people in the fire without proper training background, kind of coaching that they need. So they can be very comfortable in that space. Like what you know today, if you knew back then, you would be a lot more at peace. This is how life is. This is how it has to happen. So do you think that that knowledge, that coaching is missing because today there will be somebody else in the same shoes, right?
I think HR departments and corporate leadership is starting to get it. So my company offers an offering which has 8 free therapy sessions a year, or 8 free coaching sessions per year. So they're starting to get it, that this is an important development that we need to do with our future leaders, or even just a mid-level professional, right? But are we going to get there before the rest of the Gen X moves out of the workforce? I don't know if we're going to get there that quickly.
Yeah.
So there is a value in finding your own coach and working with them to, especially if you're suffering with things like imposter syndrome, if you're suffering with identity achievement, right? Or you not finding fulfillment in the work that you're doing, even though you're accomplishing a lot, right? The other one that people can get stuck on is perfection analysis. I'm sorry,
Oh, yeah.
we'll call it analysis paralysis, which is just another
Yes.
form of
Analysis
perfectionism,
paralysis. Yes.
right? I've done all this work to make this presentation beautiful. Why can't I just present it? Or
Yes.
why can't I just turn in this? Or why am I looking for another extension, even though I know it's good enough?
Yes. Yes. And that if you go like one level deeper, like why do people do it? And behind the scene, it is the insecurity. Because I think we all have heard the stories like two groups were given the to make a vase. One has to make the best vase possible without any flaw, and the other one can make as many as they want. At the end of the day, the ones who were making quantity end up making quality also. So this is uh, this is the insecurities. I will be looked upon if I'm not given my best. So that's why just people are getting into this analysis paralysis and all. But the bottom line is that in all of these, they need help. And one of the like I think this landscape of the help that employees need is changing versus what the traditional HR help is that they provide. I think right now the technology change, the adoption is becoming a much bigger challenge. Like you were saying, the imposter syndrome. Then really uh, you know some of the other ones like, hey, getting together as a group, those were not the biggest issues. So what do you think that these technology challenges, how are they playing much bigger role in how the new kids are coming, like the ones that are how do they cope up with these changes versus how the mid carriers have been you know uh, Is there any generational difference in how people take these challenges versus how we've been handling, like the Gen Zs or the baby boomers were doing it one way, then millennials, and now Gen X and Gen Zs. This adoption, are there any different, or are there any generation that is, having more challenge than others?
An interesting question, and it's something I've been thinking about quite a bit now because we are in a new technical revolution,
Yes.
right? This is artificial intelligence, the way I see it, is going to change everything. Every workflow is going to change. The companies that implement AI are going to be the ones that move forward, and the ones that don't are going to be left behind. And I don't know if we're spending enough time thinking about what does that mean for our entry-level position people, right? I talked to my daughter who's in college now. They're not training them yet on how to even do prompt engineering. Great. Companies are moving that way. I know I look around my company and they've got things posted all the way around on here's a framework on how to write a good prompt. Waiting to get on the elevator, I can read about how to write a good prompt. So the companies get it that this is important, but the colleges don't. What's that going to do for these entry-level people that just want to get their foot in the door into these companies?
Yeah.
They're not getting the training that they need.
Yeah.
Right. And the worst part of it is artificial intelligence is probably going to hit them hardest, because why does a company need an entry-level data analyst when I can just prompt for what that data analyst would do?
Yeah.
So we need to start taking some better care and thinking about how do we empower this new workforce, right? And then we get into the mid-career people, and companies may be starting to push the AI because there is a cost benefit improvement to the company to adopting AI. But I don't know if we're taking enough care for those mid-level professionals to teach them, okay, so this is what your job is now. This is what your job could be moving towards in the future, right? We're just telling them, just do it, just adopt it, or else.
Again, going
That's got to
back
be
to
scary for someone
the
who's
thing
not
that
in it.
we treat them like machines, but we are not machines. We need to process everything. We need to digest what is happening. We need to understand what is happening, not just like you said, simply telling them is not going to work.
Right. What becomes to the software developer once Cursor takes over, or Windsurf, right? Like, these are real tools that essentially can do 80 to 90% of their jobs. And this is the worst it's ever going to be, is right now. You
Yeah.
think about it, every day that AI adopts is the worst AI is going to be at that time. It just keeps improving from there. Right. And
Yeah.
6 months ago, did we even know about things like O1 and O3, these new reasoning models?
Yeah.
This is the stuff we're not even aware of yet, right?
Yeah.
Basically, low-level research assistants need not apply.
Yeah.
ChatGPT can do that now for a fraction of the cost of hiring a
Yeah.
research assistant, which it's scary to these people.
Yeah.
And I
And
don't know if we're taking the care
yeah.
that needs to be done for their mindset.
Yeah, that's a growing gap. And definitely, that's where companies and everywhere else had to start thinking, like, it's not those traditional HR trainings anymore. Like at some point of time, the workplace violence and those things were pretty standard. They still are, but there are much important things and much bigger things now that definitely looked into. They have to take into account. Yeah.
Right. What is the future of the workforce, and how do we get them ready for it?
Yeah, and again, those soft skills, how to keep them motivated, how to keep them fulfilled. I mean, after all, we're talking about humans. They come in and they if they're not fulfilled, their family life would be not very happy, and the whole society. So it's not just how do they do it. It's like the new work has to be fulfilling. Yeah. So
Correct.
so Eric, like I think you provide a great service, or you are in the right space. I mean, that's at least what I think. Tell us how folks can reach you. I will put your website links and everything in the description of this podcast, but give us some idea, what is the process look like, how do you help those people? What kind of folks, if people are struggling, they should reach out to you?
So I think you've got my email address, and if you wouldn't mind just putting it into the content of this, I just say just reach out and let's have I'll provide a 30-minute complimentary strategy session. And let's talk if my coaching and hypnotherapy is a right fit for you. I've got a coaching program called the Boundless Mindset Mastery. It focuses on you and your results. We're constantly measuring week to week, seeing how things like your fulfillment, your career, your family life, your relationships, and we're measuring those week to week. I do have homework that I give to my clients in the Mindset Mastery program, but it's homework that's beneficial. It's fun, right? It's helping you discover a little bit more about who you are. And it makes our time together when I'm doing a coaching session that much easier for both of us.
Yeah. So anything you want to say to the mid-career professionals, since this podcast primarily is around them, how can they see their struggle? One of the things that I always say is, hey guys, you don't have to struggle. Just look around. The help is all around. And those struggles are real that we're having. And definitely, the changes are happening faster than um, companies or the folks can adopt it. What do you want to say to them? What kind of help should they look for, and what kind of, you know, um, planning should they do for themselves?
Well, I read this great quote a couple days ago. It's called "Everything is figure outable." Right? Start seeing the world as it's happening for you.
That's
Nothing's
awesome.
happening to you. The problems that we create are problems that are inside our minds. We can work through these things together. Don't be afraid to go out and ask for help. Right? Get a mentor, get a coach, go see a therapist. In the wise words of my teacher, David Bayer, take your mindset, treat your mindset as if your life depends on it, because it does.
Yeah. I I cannot be agree more. It's all about mindset. It's all about, the master that we have in our head. Um, that let that not run wild. Let it be helping you to live a life that you deserve, that you want to. Um, Eric, I really want to thank you for joining um, this podcast and providing these valuable informations to the listeners. We would definitely look forward for any more future podcasts and do a little bit more deep dive on hypnotherapy and those cases. Today we were keeping that at a little bit higher level as the introduction that we created. Any last thing you want to say before we wrap up to your audience or anyone else, Eric?
Yeah, don't take it so seriously,
Absolutely.
right?
Okay.
Life is meant to be fun. Let's just have fun together.
Yes, yes, that is most important. Okay. Thank you, Eric. And we will have a future program to go much more deep dive. And I'm pretty sure that will be helpful to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack Paul.